Hello. I understand there's an election coming up on the 4th of July, Independence Day. Let's see how independent our potential candidates to be in government really are. Are they independent? Are they independent of thought? Have they got some new creative ideas? Are they going to be different from the last lot? Who are you going to vote in, if you're going to vote at all? Now, it's unlikely that I'm actually going to vote at all. I want to get off the electoral roll. But if I did, and if somebody did come banging on my door and says, please, please, will you vote for me? We've got all the right policies and all the ideas. Oh, okay. I would say I'd bring them in, sit them down, make them a cup of tea. I'm a nice, polite, gentle person, you see. And I would say, I've just got a few questions. Just a few. There may be more than these. There may be others that will occur to me, but these are the ones that I've just come up with at this precise moment that I want to ask you. And I've made a list. I hope you don't mind. Sit down, have a biscuit, and let's go through them and see just how independent and clever you really are, and how kind and benevolent you can be in the next government, shall we see, for the next 5 years. Let's just see. Am I going to vote for you? Here are my questions for potential election candidates. Let's go through them. So here we go. Will you, is the question I will start with, will you return all the councils, all the government services, the offices and the executive, the law courts, the authority organisations to their former status, serving the people, by the people, and will you dissolve the corporate nature of those businesses? Cancel, for example, and resign them from Dun and Bradstreet and Companies House? Will you do that? Because I don't want all these corporations running, these dead entities running us. I would like to see, again, back in the old days, assemblies of people for the people, running these things by the people. Will you do that? Is that the first thing you'll do when you get in there? Make sure that these dead entities are not running us and that we are run by people and can make a difference. That would be my first question. Let's run through some of the rest. So my second one is, will you cease, ban and prohibit all the chemicals spraying in the skies in the UK? And will you also advise other countries to do likewise? That would be very nice. I'd like my weather back, really. Thank you very much. I don't want all this cold nonsense that you've been bunging on. I would like some vitamin D, natural vitamin D. I'd like the sun to actually get on my skin. I'd like people to go out and have fun, and families during the summer holidays be able to enjoy the countryside and stand up and get nicely suntans and all the rest of it and enjoy themselves. So the fetes and the school fairs and all these things that go on can have a lovely time. That would be my request. Will you do that? Let's go through some more of these. Would you immediately withdraw from all war activities and the sales of weapons to foreign countries, which results, as we know, in the murder of innocent men, women and children across the world? Would you actually stop killing people? That would be very nice. If you could do that, you almost got my vote. But there's a few more questions here. For example, will you put an end to all net zero policies? Could you admit that man-made global warming is a myth and that CO2 is actually the gas of life? We need it to grow things. And could you tell us that climate change is not really the catastrophic problem that it's been made out to be? Would you remove all the wind turbines and all the useless damaging solar farms and give the land back to farming? That would be quite nice if you could do that for us. Thank you very much. Also, would you eliminate and cease the illegal rollout of 5G towers? Admit the real dangers of radiation from this technology, along with the Wi-Fi that we have at home and mobile phones in general, and give reliable information to the public on its safe usage. Would you do that? Then you've potentially got my vote. However, I'd also like to find out, will you stop poisoning the water with fluoride and other chemicals? And would you insist that the water treatment services actually only supply clean H2O, real water to all the households? That would be quite nice. Would you promote homeschooling as the first way to educate children and provide funding and services for those parents who choose to do that and support them in every possible way. And where state schools may be required for convenience of some parents having to go to work and what have you, well, will you ensure that things like sex education is removed from the curriculum and that there is a much more holistic form of learning encouraged rather than all this rather training up state obedient servants and all of that? That would be quite nice. Will you do that? These are just some of the questions I'd like to know as you are standing as a candidate for election, because these are important things to me. There may be others. My viewers probably got more things. What about, will you actually protect the borders? Will you stop the illegal immigration, the migration of all these people to this country, stop putting them up at our expense in hotels and goodness knows what? Will you actually do what you're supposed to do with the borders? That would be quite nice. Thank you so much. What about the police? Will you retrain the police? Insist that the police constables retake and understand their oath so they know what the hell they're doing and who they're serving. And will you clean up all the corruption so we do not see them turning up to assist bailiffs and people like that, and that they're not there to do civil matters, they're there for criminal matters? Could you make sure that that happened? You know, if you do that, it would be great. What a lovely place it would be with a Dixon of Dock Green, Jack Warner style policeman doing community services for people. Evening all. Oh, it'd be much nicer. Thank you very much. These are the things that I want. What about, hang on, I'm losing my page here. What about, would you tear up and refuse to implement any of the policies that take the freedoms from the people, including digital IDs, CBDCs, and surveillance technology? Would you promote freedom to travel anywhere? That should be not anyway, but anywhere, and stop harassing motorists? Would you do that? That would be very nice. Could you also cease all attempts to create these 15-minute cities that nobody wants, and put an end to all the ridiculous notion of the low traffic zones, charging people ULEZ and all of that? Would you cut with immediate effect ties to the WEF and the WHO, the Club of Rome, the Trilateral Commission, the UN, and all these other non-corrupt, non-elected, unaccountable bureaucratic organisations, and people like the Wellcome Foundation and Bill Gates and all of these sort of people? Would you just get rid of those, please, and not have any more to do with them, and don't let them influence whatsoever the government of this country? That would be good. Also, cut ties with all the bloodline families of influence and their henchmen. We don't want any of that anymore. That's proved to be an absolute disaster, self-serving and no use to the public. And what about, could you turn banks back into real banks, serving the local community? Could you stop money creation, this sort of out of thin air creation of money? Stop lending money that they actually do not have. Eliminate the fractional reserve banking. Could you prevent usury and create money, real money, based on real assets? I think that's what people would really like. And if you could do that, that would be halfway towards serving the people. Another thing that you could do, of course, is to prevent the utility companies from fleecing their customers with inflated prices and forcing unwanted items on their customers, such as smart meters. That would be a help also. Another thing I'd like you to do, and I'm asking, will you insist and ensure that supermarkets, for example, only supply healthy food? And the food processing, it doesn't necessarily add unnecessary chemicals into the food chain. Could you promote healthy foods at all times? Help people get back to health in a proper holistic way. Help farmers turn their monocrops into regenerative farming and proper organic farming, and allow raw milk to be sold everywhere. These are just some of the things I would very much like to see on your manifesto. But there's more. Yes, I'd like you to encourage more people to buy land for homesteads, growing food, animal husbandry and recreation. As well as nature as well, letting nature thrive, of course. And maybe you could ensure that will you ensure that big landowners make available more of the country's land for public usage and not to hog it solely for their own personal, private pleasure? I mean, they can have their little gardens and what have you, but we need to have more access to the land, which is, the land really belongs to nobody, does it not? I don't mind people who've made a bit of money having some area of privacy, of course, and a little, nice swimming pool and a tennis court. If so, I've got nothing against that. But not buying up massive swathes of land of which they just exclude the public from. I don't think that's a very good thing at all. And another question I've got here. Will you stop jabbing children, and indeed adults, that is, with dodgy medicines? Will you prevent the NHS from going private? Turn GP surgeries back into smaller family-run practices rather than the corporates that they have been, and not solely relying on these pharmaceuticals, but offering alternative holistic treatments and services, other ways to help people get better, and not sort of telling people porcupines that these don't exist or they're no good. And will you stop, another thing, will you please just stop taxing us? Eliminate income tax altogether. Lower the VAT and duties on things, and remove all repressive taxes, such as the one on fuel. That would be a real benefit to society and people. Would you let the people decide the policies for the country and have the governance enact only those rather than implementing their own tyrannical ones? That would be good. And finally, on my list, and I'm sure there's many more to come, would you bring back trial by jury in all court cases? Let the people decide. Let people make up the decisions, not just whether somebody's guilty, but whether those laws that have been put into place and are on statute, whether they're actually necessary or not. Trial by jury would sort out a hell of a lot of problems. They're just some of the questions that just came to mind today. But tomorrow, come back tomorrow, I may have a few more for you, potential election candidates, if you want to run this country. I think there are some basic things that I would like to see, and I know my viewers, they're very clever and very resourceful people. I'm sure they've got a whole load of questions they would ask, and maybe they'll put them in the comments. What would you like to ask your potential electioneering candidates, should you decide to lower yourself to vote for these people?